Hey there. Let's start with a question. When was the last time you sat down to work on something, gave it your full, undivided attention, and came away feeling like you accomplished something truly meaningful? Hard to remember, right? That's not surprising, considering how chaotic and distracting life has become in the digital age. Between endless notifications, emails, and the constant pull of social media, our ability to focus deeply, if we ever had it, feels like a fading memory. But what if I told you there's a way to reclaim that focus? What if there's a method to rise above the noise, unlock your true potential, and get more done in less time, all while feeling a sense of accomplishment and purpose? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. The transformative concept of deep work, as introduced by Cal Newport in his book Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. This concept isn't just theoretical, it's a skill that can be learned and honed over time. And Newport's book is a blueprint for making it happen. Over the next few hours, we'll dive deep into this fascinating framework. We'll break down each chapter, explore real-life examples, and I'll share actionable tips to help you incorporate these principles into your daily routine. So, if you're ready to transform the way you work, stay tuned. Let's start with the first part of the book, the idea behind deep work, why it's so valuable, and what makes it increasingly rare in today's world. Let's jump in. Part 1, the idea. Under the Part 1, we have Chapter 1, Deep Work is Valuable. Alright, let's get into the heart of why deep work matters so much. Newport starts this chapter by making a bold claim. Deep work is one of the most valuable skills you can cultivate in today's world. And he's not talking about just professional success. This is about creating a life where your efforts truly make a difference, where what you produce isn't just good, but exceptional. Let's unpack this. In the modern economy, technology is advancing at a breakneck pace. Think about it. Every industry is being reshaped by automation, artificial intelligence, and digital tools. Tasks that were once performed by humans are now being handled by machines or software. And while this shift has made certain jobs obsolete, it's also created a huge demand for people who can do what machines can't. That's where deep work comes in. Deep work is the ability to focus intensely on a challenging task for an extended period. It's about pushing the limits of your cognitive abilities, learning new skills, solving complex problems, or producing innovative ideas. This isn't work you can do while multitasking or checking your phone every 5 minutes. It requires your full attention and mental energy. Now, let's take a closer look at Newport's formula. High-quality work produced equals time spent x intensity of focus. This equation is deceptively simple, but incredibly powerful. What it means is that the quality of what you produce isn't just a factor of how much time you spend working. It's about how intensely focused you are during that time. 2 hours of undistracted, high-intensity work can easily outperform 8 hours of scattered, shallow effort. Let me give you an example to make this concrete. Imagine 2 people writing a research paper. Person A spends 8 hours in a noisy coffee shop, juggling emails and text messages while occasionally typing out a paragraph. Person B spends 2 hours in a quiet library, phone off, fully immersed in the task. At the end of the day, who do you think has a more polished and coherent paper? Exactly. Person B has leveraged the power of deep work, while Person A has fallen into the trap of shallow productivity. Newport argues that as automation continues to replace routine jobs, the ability to engage in deep work is becoming more valuable than ever. Let's take the example of programming. A shallow programmer might patch together some quick fixes for a codebase, but a deep worker, someone who can sit down, analyze the problem, and design an elegant, efficient solution, is the one who's truly irreplaceable. This brings us to an important point. Deep work isn't just valuable, it's rare. We'll explore this more in the next chapter, but for now, think about how few people in today's world actually work with full, undivided attention. Between social media, open office distractions, and the ever-present pressure to respond immediately to emails, deep work has become almost a lost art. Let's pause for a moment. How often do you dedicate your full attention to a single meaningful task? If you're like most people, the answer is probably not very often. And that's okay. Newport isn't here to judge. He's here to offer a way forward. The value of deep work also extends beyond just career success. When you engage in deep work, you're not just creating better outcomes, you're growing as a person. Every time you tackle a cognitively demanding task, you're stretching your brain's capacity to think critically and solve problems. It's like going to the gym, but for your mind. And just like with physical fitness, the more you practice deep work, the better you get at it. Let me share a real-world story that illustrates this point. A friend of mine works in graphic design, a field where creativity and precision are everything. For years, she struggled with procrastination, spending her days bouncing between social media and client emails, with little time left for actual design work. Then she read about deep work and decided to try an experiment. She blocked off 3 hours every morning for uninterrupted design time. No emails, no social media, no distractions. Within weeks, her work improved dramatically. Clients noticed. They started asking for her specifically, and her career took off. That's the power of deep work. It's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter. Now let's address something you might be thinking. Sure, deep work sounds great, but isn't it exhausting? Well, yes, it is. Deep work requires effort, discipline, and mental stamina. But here's the thing. The rewards far outweigh the effort. Newport emphasizes that deep work isn't meant to fill your entire day. Instead, the goal is to carve out blocks of time for deep, focused effort while minimizing shallow work as much as possible. Before we move on, let's reflect on this. What would your life look like if you committed to just 1 hour of deep work every day? What could you accomplish in a week? A month? A year? Newport believes that this small shift could transform not just your career, but your entire approach to life. So, to recap, deep work is valuable because it allows you to master complex skills, produce high-quality results, and stand out in an increasingly competitive world. But as we'll see in the next chapter, the rarity of deep work makes it even more essential. Let's keep going and explore why deep work is so rare, and what that means for you. Chapter 2, Deep Work is Rare. Let's take a closer look at why deep work is not just valuable, but also exceedingly rare in today's world. Cal Newport dedicates this chapter to examining the forces that have led to a workplace culture where distractions thrive, shallow tasks dominate, and the ability to focus deeply has become almost a lost art. If you've ever worked in a modern office, you'll recognize the environment Newport describes. Open office layouts, endless email chains, Slack notifications, and a constant pressure to be responsive are all hallmarks of today's work culture. On the surface, these trends may seem like signs of progress. They're often touted as ways to foster collaboration and efficiency. But Newport argues that these systems actually create a culture of shallow work, where people are so busy being busy that they rarely accomplish anything of real substance. Let's start with open office layouts. These spaces were designed to encourage collaboration, breaking down barriers between colleagues to create a free-flowing exchange of ideas. Sounds great, right? Except, in reality, they often have the opposite effect. Imagine trying to focus on a complex task while coworkers chat nearby, phones ring constantly, and people walk past your desk every few minutes. The noise and interruptions make it nearly impossible to enter a state of deep concentration. Instead, most people resort to doing simpler, less demanding tasks that don't require much focus, like responding to emails or attending quick meetings. And then there's the issue of constant connectivity. Tools like email, instant messaging, and project management platforms were supposed to make work more efficient. But what they've actually done is create a culture where everyone feels the need to be available 24/7. Think about it. How many times have you stopped what you were doing to reply to an email that wasn't urgent, or checked your messages just because you felt like you had to? Newport calls this phenomenon the principle of least resistance. Here's how it works. In the absence of clear productivity metrics, most people naturally gravitate toward tasks that are easiest to complete in the moment. For example, it's far simpler to reply to an email than it is to write a detailed project proposal. It's less mentally taxing to sit in a meeting than to spend hours crafting a creative solution to a complex problem. Over time, these shallow, easy tasks start to dominate your workday, pushing the deeper, more meaningful work to the sidelines. Let's make this more relatable with an example. Picture a marketing professional named Sarah. Sarah's job involves creating comprehensive campaigns that require strategic thinking and creative problem solving. But instead of spending her time on this important work, she's constantly interrupted by client emails, team messages, and status update meetings. Each interruption breaks her concentration, and by the time she gets back to her main task, she's lost her flow. At the end of the day, Sarah has been busy from start to finish, but her actual progress on the campaign is minimal. This is the reality for countless professionals in today's workplace. What makes the principle of least resistance so insidious is that it feels productive in the moment. When you respond to an email or attend a meeting, you can check something off your to-do list. It gives you a quick dopamine hit that makes you feel like you've accomplished something, even if that task wasn't truly important. Over time, this creates a cycle where shallow work becomes the norm and deep work feels increasingly out of reach. Let's pause for a moment and reflect. Think about your own work habits. How much of your day is spent on tasks that truly require your full attention? And how much is spent on tasks that are easy, but ultimately inconsequential? If you're like most people, the balance probably leans heavily toward the shallow side. But why does this happen? Newport points out that our culture has come to prioritize busyness over productivity. In many workplaces, being seen as constantly active, responding to emails quickly, attending back-to-back meetings, or always being available, has become a status symbol. It's almost as if being busy has replaced being effective. Another factor contributing to the rarity of deep work is the way success is often measured. In many industries, it's hard to quantify the value of deep, thoughtful work. For example, how do you measure the quality of a groundbreaking idea or the impact of a well-written report? These outcomes often take time to materialize and aren't immediately visible. On the other hand, shallow tasks, like sending 50 emails in a day, are easy to measure and provide instant gratification. Here's a quick example to put this into perspective. Imagine you're a chef in a busy restaurant. Instead of focusing on creating one beautifully plated dish, you spend all your time chopping vegetables, organizing ingredients, and cleaning the kitchen. At the end of the day, the kitchen looks spotless, but the customers are still hungry. That's what shallow work does. It keeps you busy, but doesn't feed your true potential. Newport isn't saying that shallow work is completely unnecessary. Tasks like replying to emails or attending meetings do have their place. But the problem arises when shallow work takes over, leaving no time or energy for the deep, meaningful work that drives real progress. So, what can we do about it? The first step is recognizing the problem. Take an honest look at your work habits and identify the distractions and shallow tasks that are eating away at your time. From there, you can start creating boundaries and systems that prioritize deep work over shallow work. One simple but powerful strategy is to schedule blocks of time for deep work and treat them as non-negotiable. During these blocks, turn off notifications, close unnecessary tabs, and let others know that you're unavailable unless it's an emergency. Over time, these dedicated periods of focus will help you build the habit of deep work and reclaim your ability to concentrate on what truly matters. To sum up, deep work is rare because our modern workplace culture prioritizes busyness, connectivity, and responsiveness over true productivity. The principle of least resistance keeps us stuck in a cycle of shallow work, while the pressures of being constantly active leave little room for deep concentration. But by understanding these challenges and making deliberate changes to our habits and environments, we can begin to reclaim the lost art of deep work and unlock our full potential. Now let's move on to Chapter 3, where Newport explores how deep work is not only valuable and rare, but also profoundly meaningful. Chapter 3. Deep work is meaningful. In this chapter, Newport shifts the focus to a deeper question. Why does deep work matter not just for productivity, but for the quality of our lives? It's not only about achieving professional success or producing high-value results. It's about finding fulfillment and purpose in what we do. Newport delves into the psychological and neurological effects of deep work, showing how it connects to a profound sense of satisfaction that shallow work simply can't provide. Let's start with the concept of flow. You may have heard this term before. It was popularized by psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who described it as a state of complete immersion in an activity. Flow happens when you're so deeply engaged in a task that you lose track of time, and everything else seems to fade away. Your mind is fully present, challenges are met with skill, and there's an almost effortless rhythm to your work. Think about the last time you experienced flow. Maybe it was while painting, writing, coding, or even solving a complex puzzle. During those moments, you weren't distracted by notifications, emails, or background noise. You were completely absorbed in the task at hand, and when you finished, there was a deep sense of accomplishment. That's the kind of experience Newport is advocating for with deep work. The reason flow feels so satisfying is tied to how our brains are wired. When we engage in focused, cognitively demanding tasks, our brains release dopamine, a chemical that makes us feel good. This is why activities that challenge us, like learning a new skill or completing a tough project, often leave us feeling fulfilled. On the other hand, shallow work, though easier and less mentally taxing, rarely provides the same level of reward. Let's use an example to make this clearer. Imagine you're climbing a mountain. The journey is hard, your muscles ache, and the path is steep. But when you reach the summit, you are rewarded with an incredible view and a sense of achievement that makes all the effort worthwhile. Now, compare that to taking an escalator to the top of a small hill. Sure, it's quicker and requires less effort, but the experience is forgettable. Deep work is like climbing that mountain. It's challenging, but the rewards are lasting and meaningful. Newport argues that this sense of satisfaction isn't just a nice bonus. It's essential for a contented life. In fact, he challenges the modern notion that happiness comes from leisure and relaxation. While rest and downtime are important, true fulfillment often comes from the act of creating something, solving problems, or contributing meaningfully to the world around us. Deep work provides a pathway to these experiences, allowing us to tap into our potential and feel a sense of purpose. Let's consider an example. Think about artists, musicians, and writers. These individuals often spend hours in solitude, deeply focused on their craft. It's not an easy process. They face frustration, setbacks, and creative blocks. But when they finally finish a painting, a song, or a novel, there's a profound sense of accomplishment. That's because their work isn't just about ticking off tasks. It's an expression of who they are and what they value. The same principle applies to any profession. Whether you're a teacher designing a curriculum, a software developer writing code, or a scientist conducting experiments, the act of fully immersing yourself in meaningful work can be deeply rewarding. Newport suggests that by prioritizing deep work, we can experience more moments of flow, leading to greater fulfillment both professionally and personally. Now let's explore another layer of why deep work feels meaningful. It's tied to the concept of mastery. When you engage in deep work, you're not just completing tasks, you're building skills and improving your abilities. This process of continual growth taps into something fundamental about human nature, our desire to learn, improve, and reach our full potential. Take athletes, for instance. A swimmer doesn't achieve greatness by practicing casually or splitting their attention between training and scrolling through their phone. Instead, they dedicate hours to focused practice, refining their technique and pushing their limits. This commitment to deep, deliberate effort is what allows them to excel. And the same principle applies to any field of work. But it's not just about achieving external success. The process of mastery itself is deeply satisfying. When we focus on improving a skill or solving a challenging problem, we feel a sense of progress and purpose. This is why deep work isn't just a tool for career advancement. It's a pathway to a richer, more meaningful life. Let's bring this closer to home. Have you ever spent hours working on a project you were passionate about? Maybe you were building a piece of furniture, organizing an event, or learning a musical instrument. Even if the task was difficult, there was likely a sense of pride and satisfaction when you saw the results of your effort. That's what deep work offers, a way to connect with what you care about and create something that feels truly valuable. Newport also touches on the importance of aligning your work with your values. When your tasks are meaningful and aligned with your goals, deep work becomes not just a skill, but a practice that enhances your overall well-being. For instance, a doctor deeply focused on diagnosing a patient, a teacher crafting an inspiring lesson plan, or an entrepreneur developing a groundbreaking product all experience a sense of purpose that shallow tasks simply can't replicate. Before we wrap up, let's address a common misconception. Some people think deep work is only for certain types of jobs, like writing, programming, or research. But Newport argues that anyone can benefit from deep work, regardless of their profession. The key is to identify the aspects of your work that are most meaningful and prioritize them. Deep work is meaningful because it taps into our innate desire for focus, progress, and purpose. By engaging in deep, cognitively demanding tasks, we can achieve more, grow as individuals, and find fulfillment in our work. It's not just about what you produce, it's about who you become in the process. As we move forward, we'll dive into the rules Newport outlines for cultivating deep work in your daily life. But for now, take a moment to reflect. What's one task in your life that feels truly meaningful? How would it feel to approach that task with your full, undivided attention? Let's continue with the next section and explore how you can begin to build a life centered around deep, focused work. Part 2, the rules. Rule number 1, work deeply. This is where the book starts getting practical. Newport takes the big picture idea of deep work and drills it down into actionable strategies that you can use to make focused work a part of your daily life. But first, let's consider why creating a structured approach to deep work is so important. Imagine trying to train for a marathon. Would you succeed if you ran randomly, without a training schedule or plan? Probably not. Your progress would be inconsistent, and you might not even make it to race day. Deep work is the same. It's a skill that requires deliberate practice, and without a plan or routine, it's all too easy for distractions and shallow tasks to take over. Newport's first rule, work deeply, emphasizes the need to approach deep work systematically. He explains that while the modern world is full of distractions, it's entirely possible to create an environment and a routine that support focused effort. It's about intentionally structuring your time and surroundings to help you achieve the deep focus necessary for meaningful work. One of Newport's key points is that deep work doesn't just happen spontaneously. You can't expect to sit down in a chaotic environment, surrounded by distractions, and suddenly enter a state of profound focus. Instead, you need to set the stage for deep work by creating rituals and designing an environment that minimizes distractions and promotes concentration. Let's start with the physical space. Think about where you do your most important work. Is it cluttered with papers, your phone, and other distractions? Newport suggests clearing your workspace of anything that doesn't serve your purpose. A clean, quiet space signals to your brain that it's time to focus. Next, consider your rituals. Newport recommends creating specific routines that prepare your mind for deep work. This could include things like starting your session with a few minutes of meditation, writing down your goals for the day, or setting a timer to signal the beginning and end of your deep work block. These rituals act as cues, helping you transition into a focused mindset. One example is a famous story about writer Anthony Trollope. Every morning, Trollope would wake up early, sit at his desk, and write for 3 hours. He wasn't waiting for inspiration to strike. He had a routine that allowed him to produce consistently. By the end of his career, he'd published dozens of novels, all thanks to his structured approach to deep work. The 4 philosophies of scheduling deep work. Newport also introduces 4 different approaches to integrating deep work into your routine. Each one is suited to different lifestyles and responsibilities, so the idea is to choose the approach that works best for you. 1. The monastic approach. This is the most extreme form of deep work. It involves eliminating or radically minimizing shallow work and distractions to focus almost exclusively on deep, meaningful tasks. Think of it like a monk retreating to a monastery to dedicate their life to their craft. This approach might work well for someone like a novelist, researcher, or artist, someone whose profession doesn't require constant interaction with others. For example, computer scientist Donald Knuth famously avoids email altogether, instead relying on letters to communicate. This allows him to focus deeply on his work without constant interruptions. While the monastic approach isn't practical for most people, it's a reminder that reducing shallow work is key to achieving deep focus. 2. The bimodal approach. The bimodal approach involves dividing your time between deep work and everything else. For example, you might dedicate 2 days a week to uninterrupted deep work, while the remaining days are spent handling meetings, emails, and other tasks. This strategy works well for people who need to balance deep work with collaborative or administrative responsibilities. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, used this approach. He split his time between a quiet retreat in the Swiss Alps, where he worked deeply on his theories, and his professional practice, where he interacted with patients and colleagues. 3. The rhythmic approach. The rhythmic approach is all about consistency. It involves setting aside regular blocks of time for deep work, such as dedicating 2 hours every morning to focused effort. The idea is to build deep work into your daily routine so that it becomes a habit. This approach is particularly effective because it reduces the mental effort required to decide when to work deeply. By establishing a rhythm, you don't have to constantly negotiate with yourself about whether or not to start. Think of it like going to the gym at the same time every day. Once it becomes part of your routine, it feels natural and automatic. Many writers, like Maya Angelou, have used this approach to maintain a consistent output of work. 4. The journalistic approach. Finally, there's the journalistic approach, which involves fitting deep work into any available time slots throughout your day. This method requires a high level of discipline because it means switching into a focused mindset on demand, often amidst a busy schedule. Journalists often use this approach because their workdays can be unpredictable. They need to seize opportunities for deep work whenever they arise. Newport warns that this approach isn't for everyone. It requires a lot of practice to develop the ability to transition quickly into deep focus. Newport emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. The key is to choose the approach that aligns best with your circumstances and responsibilities. If you're someone with a lot of control over your schedule, you might lean toward the monastic or bimodal approach. If your days are packed with meetings and other obligations, the rhythmic or journalistic approach might be more practical. The important thing is to commit to a system and stick with it. Deep work requires consistency, and the more you practice, the easier it becomes to enter a focused state. Of course, even the best schedule won't work if you're constantly interrupted. Newport offers several strategies for minimizing distractions. 1. Turn off notifications on your phone and computer. 2. Use noise-canceling headphones or white noise to block out background sounds. 3. Set boundaries with colleagues or family members, letting them know when you're in a deep work session. 4. Use tools like website blockers to limit access to distracting sites during work hours. Another crucial point Newport makes is that deep work is mentally exhausting. It's not something you can do for 8 hours straight. Instead, aim for shorter, high-quality sessions. Research shows that most people can sustain deep focus for about 4 hours a day at most. The goal is to make those hours count. To sum up, The first rule of deep work is to treat it as a deliberate practice, not something you do when you feel like it. By creating rituals, designing your environment, and choosing a scheduling philosophy that fits your life, you can make deep work a consistent part of your routine. Now let's move on to the second rule: embrace boredom. This might sound counterintuitive, but Newport argues that boredom is a powerful tool for strengthening your focus. Let's explore why. Rule number 2: embrace boredom. Let's be honest, boredom isn't exactly something we go out of our way to experience. In fact, most of us spend our days actively trying to avoid it. When we feel even a flicker of boredom, our instinct is to reach for our phones, open a new tab, or scroll through social media. But in deep work, Cal Newport flips the script and suggests something radical. Boredom isn't your enemy. In fact, learning to tolerate boredom can actually be one of the most powerful tools for improving focus and productivity. This rule addresses one of the most significant challenges of deep work: maintaining concentration in a world overflowing with distractions. Everywhere we turn, there's something vying for our attention. Notifications buzz, emails flood in, and the allure of quick entertainment is always just a tap away. Newport argues that this constant exposure to instant gratification is rewiring our brains, making it harder and harder to focus on tasks that require sustained attention. Think about it for a moment. How many times a day do you check your phone, even when you don't need to? Or open a social media app just to kill a few seconds? These behaviors may seem harmless, but over time, they train your brain to expect constant stimulation. When your mind is accustomed to being entertained every few minutes, the idea of sitting down to focus on a challenging task becomes almost unbearable. Newport likens this to a muscle that's been weakened from lack of use. Just like physical fitness requires regular exercise, mental fitness, specifically the ability to focus deeply, requires practice. The more you give in to distractions, the weaker your focus muscle becomes. To counteract this, Newport suggests embracing boredom as a deliberate practice. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to sit in silence for hours on end, but it does mean resisting the urge to immediately seek out distractions whenever boredom strikes. One of Newport's key strategies for embracing boredom is to schedule breaks for distractions, rather than indulging in them impulsively. Here's how it works. Instead of checking your phone or social media whenever you feel bored, you decide in advance when you'll allow yourself to engage with these distractions. For example, you might schedule a 10-minute social media break every 2 hours. During the time in between, you commit to staying focused on your work, no matter how strong the urge to check your phone becomes. This approach trains your brain to resist instant gratification and strengthens your ability to concentrate for longer periods. It's like teaching a dog to wait for a treat. At first, the dog might struggle to sit still, but with consistent practice, it learns to wait patiently. Similarly, by scheduling distractions instead of giving in to them immediately, you're retraining your brain to tolerate periods of boredom and maintain focus. But why is boredom so important for deep work? Newport explains that moments of boredom often serve as the space where creativity and problem-solving flourish. When your mind isn't constantly bombarded with information, it has the freedom to wander, reflect, and connect ideas in new ways. Think about the last time you had a great idea. Chances are, it didn't come to you while you were busy multitasking or scrolling through Instagram. It probably happened during a quiet moment, maybe while you were taking a walk, showering, or lying in bed. These moments of mental stillness are where some of our best ideas are born. By embracing boredom and allowing your mind to rest, you're creating the conditions for deeper thinking and insight. It's a counterintuitive idea, but stepping away from constant stimulation can actually make you more productive in the long run. Another important aspect of this rule is the role of willpower. Newport emphasizes that resisting distractions isn't just about motivation. It's about building habits that make deep work easier to sustain. When you rely solely on willpower to avoid distractions, you're setting yourself up for failure. Willpower is a finite resource, and as your day goes on, it becomes harder to resist temptations. That's why scheduling distractions and embracing boredom is so effective. It removes the need for constant decision-making. Instead of having to decide in the moment whether or not to check your phone, you've already made that decision in advance. This frees up mental energy and makes it easier to stay focused. Let's talk about some practical ways to put this rule into action. 1. Set specific break times. Create a schedule that includes designated breaks for distractions. During work hours, commit to staying focused until your scheduled break arrives. Use these breaks as a reward for staying on task. 2. Limit your access to distractions. Remove easy access to distractions during deep work sessions. For example, put your phone in another room, use website blockers, or turn off notifications. 3. Practice focused attention. Start small by practicing focused attention for short periods. For instance, set a timer for 20 minutes and commit to working without interruptions. Gradually increase the duration as your ability to focus improves. 4. Engage in boring tasks mindfully. Instead of avoiding boring tasks, try doing them with full attention. Whether it's washing dishes or folding laundry, use these moments to practice being fully present. 5. Take breaks without stimulation. During breaks, resist the urge to fill the time with your phone or other distractions. Instead, go for a walk, meditate, or simply sit quietly. To illustrate the power of embracing boredom, let's look at a real-life example. Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, is known for his Think Weeks. Twice a year, he retreats to a secluded cabin for a week of uninterrupted reading, reflection, and brainstorming. During these weeks, he deliberately avoids distractions and allows his mind to focus deeply. Many of Microsoft's most innovative ideas were born during these Think Weeks. While most of us don't have the luxury of taking a week-long retreat, the principle remains the same. By creating space for deep focus and reflection, you can unlock new levels of creativity and productivity. Embracing boredom isn't just about improving your work. It's about changing your relationship with focus and attention. Over time, this practice can lead to a greater sense of control over your mind, increased creativity, and a deeper connection to your work. It's not an easy process, especially in a world where distractions are everywhere. But by consistently practicing this rule, you'll develop the mental resilience needed to stay focused, even in the face of temptation. To summarize, rule number 2 challenges us to rethink our relationship with boredom and distractions. By scheduling breaks for distractions and resisting the urge to seek instant gratification, we can train our brains to tolerate boredom and maintain focus for longer periods. This practice not only strengthens our ability to concentrate, but also creates the mental space needed for creativity and deep thinking. Now that we've explored the importance of embracing boredom, let's move on to rule number 3. Quit social media. This rule dives into how we can take control of the tools we use and ensure they're serving our goals rather than distracting us from them. Stay tuned. Rule number 3. Quit social media. In rule number 3, Cal Newport takes on a topic that's bound to raise a few eyebrows: the role of social media in our lives. In a world where platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok dominate our daily routines, Newport challenges the widely held belief that these tools are indispensable. Instead, he calls for a more deliberate and selective approach to technology. The goal isn't to avoid technology entirely, but to ensure that it serves your goals and values, rather than distracting you from them. One of the first ideas Newport tackles in this chapter is what he calls the any-benefit approach to social media and technology. This mindset is pervasive. It's the idea that if a tool offers any benefit, no matter how small, it's worth using. For instance, you might justify using Instagram because it helps you keep up with friends, or Twitter because it provides occasional industry updates. But Newport argues that this way of thinking is flawed. Why? Because the any benefit mindset ignores the costs. Sure, social media might offer some minor advantages, but those benefits often come at the expense of your time, focus, and attention. Every minute you spend scrolling through your feed is a minute you're not spending on deep, meaningful work, or even on genuine leisure that recharges you. To put this into perspective, let's imagine you're trying to save money. Would you justify buying every item that's on sale just because it's a good deal? Probably not. You'd quickly run out of money, and your home would be filled with things you don't need. Social media operates the same way. Just because a tool offers some benefit doesn't mean it's worth the cost to your time and mental energy. Newport proposes an alternative to the any benefit approach, the craftsman mindset. This mindset requires you to evaluate tools not based on whether they offer some benefit, but whether they provide substantial and specific value to your personal or professional goals. In other words, the question isn't, does this tool do something useful? But rather, does this tool provide enough value to justify the time and attention it demands? Let's break this down with an example. Imagine you're a freelance graphic designer. Your professional goals might include building a strong portfolio, staying updated on design trends, and networking with potential clients. Using Instagram to showcase your work and connect with other designers could align with these goals, so it might be worth keeping. But mindlessly scrolling through funny memes or influencers' posts? Probably not. The craftsman mindset is about intentionality. It encourages you to use technology as a tool, not as a default habit. Just like a craftsman carefully selects the tools in their workshop, you should carefully curate the technologies in your life to ensure they're helping you build the life you want. Another important point Newport makes is that social media doesn't just consume your time. It also affects your mind. These platforms are designed to be addictive, using algorithms that exploit psychological vulnerabilities to keep you engaged. Likes, comments, and endless scrolling create a feedback loop that keeps your brain craving more, even when you're not consciously enjoying it. But the real cost is often hidden. Every time you check social media, you're fragmenting your attention. It might seem like a harmless distraction, but each interruption makes it harder to focus on your work. Research shows that it takes an average of 23 minutes to regain full focus after a distraction. If you're checking your phone multiple times an hour, those interruptions add up quickly. Beyond productivity, social media can also impact your mental well-being. Studies have linked excessive use of platforms like Instagram and Facebook to higher levels of anxiety, depression, and feelings of inadequacy. When you're constantly comparing your life to carefully curated highlight reels, it's easy to feel like you're falling short, even if those images aren't a true reflection of reality. Newport isn't suggesting that everyone should immediately delete all their social media accounts, though he does make a strong case for it in some situations. Instead, he advocates for a deliberate process of evaluating your relationship with these platforms. Here are some of the strategies he recommends. 1. Conduct a social media fast. Take a break from all social media platforms for 30 days. During this period, pay attention to how their absence affects your life. Do you feel more focused, less stressed, more present in your daily activities? At the end of the 30 days, evaluate whether the benefits of each platform outweigh the costs. If they don't, consider quitting them altogether. 2. Be clear about your goals. Identify your personal and professional goals. Then assess whether social media aligns with those objectives. For example, if your goal is to advance your career, consider whether LinkedIn might be a better use of your time than Instagram. 3. Set boundaries. If you decide to keep using social media, establish clear boundaries to minimize its impact on your focus and well-being. This might include limiting your usage to specific times of day, turning off notifications, using apps or browser extensions to block social media during work hours. 4. Replace social media with better alternatives. One of the reasons people struggle to quit social media is that it fills a psychological or social need. For instance, you might use it to stay connected with friends, relax, or pass the time. Newport suggests finding alternative ways to meet these needs, such as calling or meeting friends in person instead of messaging them online, engaging in offline hobbies like reading, exercising, or cooking, practicing mindfulness or meditation to help you relax. One of Newport's examples is the story of a writer who deleted her Twitter account to focus more on her craft. Initially, she worried that stepping away from the platform would hurt her career. After all, Twitter was where many writers shared their work and connected with editors. But to her surprise, quitting Twitter didn't harm her career at all. In fact, it gave her more time and mental energy to devote to her writing, which ultimately led to greater success. Another example comes from Newport himself. Despite being a successful author and computer science professor, he doesn't use social media at all. Instead, he relies on more traditional forms of communication and professional networking. This deliberate approach allows him to focus on what matters most without the distractions of endless notifications and updates. Here's a challenge for you. Take a few minutes to reflect on your own relationship with social media. Ask yourself these questions. What do I gain from using these platforms? How much time do I spend on them each day? Are they helping me achieve my goals, or are they distracting me from them? If the costs outweigh the benefits, consider trying Newport's 30-day fast or implementing boundaries to regain control over your time and attention. Rule number 3 is a wake-up call. It forces us to confront the ways technology shapes our lives and challenges us to take back control. By adopting a craftsman mindset, setting boundaries, and prioritizing tools that align with our goals, we can use technology intentionally rather than letting it use us. In the next section, we'll explore rule number 4, drain the shallows. This rule focuses on minimizing low-value, shallow work to create more time and energy for deep, meaningful tasks. Let's dive in. Rule number 4, drain the shallows. The fourth and final rule in Cal Newport's deep work is all about reclaiming your time by systematically reducing the amount of shallow work that clutters your day. Newport makes a bold yet essential claim here. To achieve meaningful results, you must aggressively minimize the time and energy you spend on low-value tasks. This chapter isn't about completely eliminating shallow work. It's about putting it in its proper place so that deep, focused work becomes the central pillar of your professional and personal life. Before diving into strategies, it's important to define what Newport means by shallow work. Shallow work consists of tasks that are non-cognitively demanding and often performed while distracted. These are the kinds of activities that don't require deep thinking or creativity, but still take up a significant portion of your time. Examples include replying to routine emails, attending unnecessary meetings, filling out forms, or scrolling through updates on a project management app. Shallow work isn't inherently bad. It's necessary in small doses to keep your life and work running smoothly. However, when shallow work dominates your day, it leaves little room for the kind of focus and creativity required for deep work. Newport argues that while shallow work might make you feel busy, it rarely contributes to long-term success or personal fulfillment. One of the most effective ways to drain the shallows is by adopting a technique called time blocking. Time blocking involves planning your day in advance by assigning specific tasks to specific time slots. This approach forces you to think critically about how you're spending your time and ensures that shallow tasks don't expand to fill your entire day. Here's how to implement time blocking. 1. Start with a blank schedule. At the beginning of your day, or even the night before, take a blank calendar or planner and divide it into hourly or half-hourly blocks. 2. Identify key priorities. List the most important tasks you need to accomplish. These should include deep work sessions, as well as necessary shallow tasks. 3. Assign tasks to time slots. Allocate each task to a specific block of time, starting with your deep work sessions. Be realistic about how long each task will take and leave some buffer time for unexpected interruptions. 4. Stick to the plan. Treat your time blocks as non-negotiable appointments. If a task takes longer than expected, adjust your schedule accordingly, but avoid letting shallow tasks encroach on deep work time. Time blocking is powerful because it forces you to make deliberate decisions about your day. Instead of letting shallow work take over by default, you proactively limit its impact and create dedicated time for meaningful work. Another strategy Newport recommends is batching shallow tasks into designated periods. Rather than addressing shallow work sporadically throughout the day, you group similar tasks together and handle them in one focused session. For example, you might set aside 30 minutes in the afternoon to reply to emails rather than checking your inbox every hour. Batching has two major benefits. First, it reduces the cognitive cost of task switching. Research shows that every time you switch between tasks, your brain has to reset, which can take several minutes. By batching similar tasks, you minimize this mental friction and complete them more efficiently. Second, batching creates boundaries around shallow work, preventing it from spilling into your deep work time. It sends a clear signal to yourself and to others that your attention is valuable and must be protected. Newport also emphasizes the importance of setting strict limits on how much time you allocate to shallow work. This involves identifying the shallow tasks in your life, estimating how much time they realistically require, and setting a hard cap on that time. For example, if you determine that emails, meetings, and administrative tasks should only take up 20% of your work week, you can set a maximum limit of 8 hours for these activities if you work a 40-hour week. Once you reach that limit, you must either delegate tasks, postpone them, or find ways to streamline them. This approach may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're in a workplace culture that values constant availability. However, setting boundaries is essential for reclaiming your time and energy. The key is to communicate these boundaries clearly and professionally. For instance, you might let colleagues know that you'll only check emails at specific times or decline meetings that don't require your input. Speaking of meetings, Newport identifies them as one of the biggest culprits of shallow work. Many meetings are poorly planned, overly long, and include participants who don't need to be there. To minimize the impact of meetings on your schedule, consider the following tips. 1. Decline when possible. If a meeting doesn't align with your responsibilities or goals, politely decline or ask for a summary instead. 2. Request an agenda. Before agreeing to a meeting, ask for a clear agenda. This helps ensure that the meeting has a defined purpose and keeps participants focused. 3. Suggest alternatives. In some cases, a quick email or a shared document might achieve the same results as a meeting, with far less time investment. Another way to drain the shallows is to track how you're currently spending your time. Newport suggests conducting a time audit to identify where your hours are going and which activities are consuming the most attention. Here's how to perform a time audit. 1. Track your activities. For 1 week, write down everything you do during the day, including how long each activity takes. Be honest and detailed. You might be surprised at how much time you spend on shallow work. 2. Categorize tasks. Divide your tasks into 2 categories, deep work and shallow work. 3. Analyze the results. Look for patterns and identify areas where shallow work is taking up more time than necessary. 4. Make adjustments. Use the insights from your time audit to make deliberate changes to your schedule. This exercise helps you gain clarity about how you're spending your time and provides a roadmap for reducing shallow work. By systematically reducing shallow work, you create more space in your schedule for deep, meaningful tasks. This doesn't just improve your productivity. It also enhances your sense of purpose and fulfillment. When you're no longer bogged down by low-value activities, you have the freedom to focus on what truly matters. Reducing shallow work also helps prevent burnout. Many people feel overwhelmed, not because their work is inherently difficult, but because their attention is constantly divided among trivial tasks. By prioritizing deep work and minimizing distractions, you can achieve more while feeling less stressed. Let's consider a real-world example of draining the shallows. Imagine a project manager who spends most of their day responding to emails, attending back-to-back meetings, and dealing with administrative tasks. By adopting Newport strategies, they start time blocking their day, batching emails into 2 30-minute sessions, and declining unnecessary meetings. Within weeks, the project manager notices a dramatic shift. They're able to dedicate 2 hours every morning to strategic planning and problem solving, tasks that were previously squeezed out by shallow work. Not only do they feel more productive, but their team also benefits from clearer direction and better communication. Rule number 4, drain the shallows, is about reclaiming your time and energy by minimizing the impact of low-value tasks. Through strategies like time blocking, batching, and setting limits, you can free up mental resources for deep, meaningful work. As we wrap up, think about your own schedule. How much of your day is spent on shallow tasks? And what steps can you take to reduce them? Remember, every minute you save on shallow work is a minute you can invest in what truly matters. With this final rule, Newport provides a comprehensive roadmap for integrating deep work into your life. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. By applying these principles, you can transform the way you work and unlock your full potential. As Cal Newport wraps up Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World, he drives home a powerful message. The ability to focus deeply is more than just a tool for productivity. It's a life-changing skill. In a world overflowing with distractions, where our attention is constantly being pulled in different directions, mastering deep work can set you apart in your career and lead to a more fulfilling personal life. Newport reminds us that distractions aren't going anywhere. Technology and workplace norms will continue to prioritize responsiveness and multitasking over meaningful, concentrated effort. However, by deliberately choosing to cultivate deep work, you can rise above this noise and redirect your energy toward what truly matters. The principles and practices in the book aren't just theoretical. They're actionable steps that anyone can take. Whether it's scheduling uninterrupted time for focused work, reevaluating your use of social media, or minimizing shallow tasks, these strategies are designed to help you reclaim control of your time and attention. As we close, think about the distractions in your own life. How often do you feel pulled away from what's important by the constant ping of notifications or the lure of quick, easy tasks? Newport challenges each of us to take responsibility for our attention and ask a simple but profound question. What would happen if you focus deeply on the work that truly matters to you? The beauty of deep work is that it's not just about achieving external success. It's about creating a sense of purpose in your day-to-day life. It's about knowing that the time you spend working is aligned with your values and goals. If you're ready to start, don't feel like you need to implement everything at once. Start small. Choose one principle from the book and commit to it for the next week. Maybe you'll experiment with time blocking, take a 30-day break from social media, or simply set aside an hour for deep focus each day. The key is to take action. Even small steps can lead to big changes over time. And as you build the habit of deep work, you'll start to notice the difference it makes in your productivity, creativity, and overall sense of accomplishment. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Deep Work by Cal Newport. I hope this summary has inspired you to rethink how you approach work and focus in your life. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on productivity, self-improvement, and personal growth. And I'd love to hear from you. What's one change you're planning to make after learning about deep work? Drop a comment below, and let's start a conversation about how we can all make our work more meaningful. Until next time, remember, your attention is one of your most valuable assets. Protect it, nurture it, and use it wisely. See you in the next video.